All right. Well, welcome everybody. I have an exciting topic today for the Modern Change Academy about CAB and SOW. Um, Before we get into the content, as you are probably familiar with, this is our safe harbor notice. There will be some things that we're going to talk about in this webinar that are forward-looking. Just know that that's kind of based on our best belief at this time, but things do change and often do change. So don't take anything as set in stone. For the agenda today, we're going to do quick introductions of your speakers today. There's three. Then we're going to do a quick overview of the legacy CAB workbench versus what is new in CAB and what that looks like. And then we're going to do a demo of CAB and SOW. We're also going to demo how to configure CAB and SOW using UI Builder. And then we're going to do a bit of an exercise with our backlog. We have some exciting enhancements that we have in our backlog for CAB and SOW, and want to get your feedback on what is most impactful to you, and also just hear from you about any other ideas that you may have. And then we'll have some time for Q&A. But throughout this presentation, please don't hold back on the questions. Use the Q&A option versus chat to ask questions, and then we'll be reviewing that and answering as we go. Okay. Introductions. Since I'm talking, I'll start with myself. My name is Kalen Castello. I'm an outbound product manager with ITSM, specifically focusing on change management. I've been with the company for about 3 years now, and excited to talk to you today. Dan, I'll hand it over to you.
Hi, my name's Daniel. I'm the product manager for change. So I own the strategy and work with the engineering team to do the innovation and the engineering, deliver the product to you. So I go on the inbound side of what Kalen does outbound. Been with ServiceNow about 11 years, worked in implementation of ITSM, led implementation teams across EMEA, led an architecture team in the UK, and then started working on product a couple of years ago. So Tash, go for it.
Hi everyone, I'm Tash. I'm a staff software engineer and I'm one of the engineers who worked on a car product for SOW. I'm also an accessibility champion for our team, so we will touch a tiny bit on some of the enhancements we've been doing for this. I've been with ServiceNow for about 7 years now, and I focus primarily on UI, and I've been pretty much mostly in change, but I've also been in and out of other major projects. For example, the redesign of the menu when the Polaris came in.
Awesome. Thanks, Tosh. Thanks, Daniel. All right, and then last little administrative slide here, bit of housekeeping. So I already mentioned the first one. We do have time at the end for Q&A, but please use the Q&A button. If you have questions throughout this presentation, we'll be checking that. After this presentation, it is being recorded. It'll be posted to community if you want to watch it afterwards. If you missed anything or you want to share it with your colleagues. And at the very end of this event, there's going to be a short survey. So please, if you can, take time to fill it out. We'd love to hear your feedback. Okay, so we're going to start with a poll, which we love to do here. So let me bring it up. I'm going to launch it. All right. Does your organization conduct CAB or something similar to CAB as a part of your change process? Yes, no, I don't know. And the second part of this question is, if you do have CABs, how do you do it today? Do you use CAB Workbench? The responses are coming in fast. Give it another 10 seconds, maybe 5 seconds. All right, I'm going to end there and share. So overwhelmingly, many of those on this call conduct CAB or something similar, over 90%. And this is off a very large number of responses. And then second part of the question, about 40% use CAB Workbench today, which is great to see. But there's also a lot who use other tools outside of ServiceNow, Excel, or just reports within ServiceNow.
I think it's worth just saying as well, if we later on when we do the roadmap, and I'm talking about some of the things and maybe show some of the designs we've got for the future, if people like comment on that or give thumbs up or whatever, if we're heading the right direction or wrong direction, because the reason you're using spreadsheets, things like bulk change or whatever, it'd be interesting to know if first of all we've nailed them with the CAB release for SOW, and second of all if some of the roadmap stuff nailed, and also if there's stuff that we've just missed. So let us know.
All right. Okay. So this might look familiar to many of you. This is the legacy cab workbench that many of you use today, and this GA'd in Istanbul. So that was just over 8 years ago. And it's an app that we built to help cab managers better schedule, plan, and manage their cab meetings within the ServiceNow platform. We initially built this cab workbench experience to help provide a more efficient and engaging way that cab managers can run cabs. And historically, up to that point, as we saw even in the poll results, many still do this today. Many use lists or reports in ServiceNow or even offline Excels to run their cabs. So we thought perhaps there's a better way that we can help them do that within ServiceNow. Some of the benefits of this cab workbench were that it helped automate a lot of manual tasks related to the administration of cabs. So think of things like generating meeting occurrences, agendas, the meeting attendee list, as well as tracking of those attendees. It also helped to increase productivity of cabs themselves with time management aids, notifications to attendees to join portions of the cab that are just relevant to the requests that they have in those cabs, as well as approvals driven directly from the workbench. But I think overall, the biggest benefit here was helping move a lot of those offline processes into working into a single system of engagement that is the Now platform. For those that use Cab Workbench today, you'll notice it looks very similar to what we released back in Istanbul. The UI hasn't changed much since then. And our goal in Yokohama was to uplift this experience, bring it into SOW, which is our new modern workspace experience, and really a focus area of investment for ITSM. And this will enable us to continue to invest in Cab and improve that experience for you. So, drum roll, this is what the new Cab experience in SOW looks like. A screenshot. We'll do a demo, of course, very soon. And this is available as a part of our May store release, and it works leveraging Yokohama Patch 3. And we see this as a major step forward from the legacy version, so customers can get this more refreshed, intuitive UX, and this will have full functional parity with what exists in the legacy workbench today. So what we have released in May works very similarly, actually exactly the same as what you know in the legacy workbench, and you'll see that as we go through the demo. And what we're planning in the future is to improve that experience based on a lot of the feedback that we've heard from customers like you. So as I mentioned, SOW is a key focus area of investment for ITSM.
We've got a hand
Yeah.
raised. I don't know if it's an accidental hand raise, but Preeti raised her hand, and we've only got one hand raised, so I guess we can take a question.
Sure. Preeti, you're allowed to talk. So if you have your question, you can ask it. Otherwise, maybe it was a mistake. Okay. I'm going to assume it was a mistake. I'm going to lower her hand. And if you have that question, just please raise it again. Okay. Yeah, so as I was saying, SOW is a key focus area of investment for ITSM, and it's ultimately where we see a lot of our customers moving towards over time. So we saw not having Cab in this SOW experience as a gap, and we knew a lot of customers wouldn't get the value out of Cab if we didn't move into this. So that's kind of why we focused on building and improving this experience in SOW. So as I said, this first version of Cab and SOW will serve as the foundation for future investment, and it has full functional parity with what we have in the legacy workbench. All right. Also worth noting, Cab is available as a part of ITSM standards, so you should all be entitled to it. And the final thing I'll note here before we get into the demo is we do view Cab and SOW as a great way for customers, or an entry point for customers to actually begin using change in Service Operations Workspace. And you'll see that as we go through the demo. You don't have to be doing your entire change process in SOW before you can take advantage of Cab and SOW. But what it will do is help facilitate configuring your change forms in SOW so that they're more usable during Cab. But you can actually just use Cab and SOW without doing change in SOW necessarily. All right. So demo time. So this first demo is just going to be of what Cab and SOW looks like, where to find it, what creating Cab definitions and what the configuration options are, creating schedules for those Cab definitions, viewing upcoming Cab meetings, and then navigating and managing an active Cab meeting in the new SOW Cab workbench. So let me flip over to this.
Caleb, I've just noticed it, but someone's asked us to define what SOW is. So could you just give
sure.
like 10 seconds on SOW?
Yeah, Service Operations Workspace is our unified workspace for IT agents and operators to work from. It's where we're investing a lot of our time in improving an experience that has kind of all of the information that agents need in one area. And so that includes incident, problem change, all of that can be done from Service Operations Workspace. And based on your roles within the platform, you have kind of different views in there, but it's kind of the single place for IT work to get done. Good question. Okay, so onto the demo now. So I'm logged in and impersonating a cab manager in Service Operations Workspace. And if you go to the list view here, you'll have a new option under changes that says Change Advisory Board. And if you are familiar with the Legacy Workbench, you see the options here are quite familiar. So you have, the first two are related to cab definitions. Cab definitions are used to define what kind of cab meetings will be scheduled. And then the next two options around cab meetings. So cab meetings for you and upcoming cab meetings generally. These are just the cab sessions that are upcoming in your organization. And you can click on these to see what the agendas are. And then this last option is all cab meetings. So if we start with cab definitions, I made this example cab definition here. Like I said, if you're familiar with the Legacy Cab Workbench, this will look quite familiar. The details of the definition are very similar. You can define the name for the definition, who the cab manager is. This is the person who will typically be hosting the cab, as well as any delegates who can also host the cab on behalf of the cab manager. You have the time zone of when the cab is being held, locations. This is probably becoming less relevant in today's world, but this is if there's any central locations where these cab meetings happen in person. You can identify that here with the locations. Then you have these two board fields, board members and board groups. Think of these as high-level stakeholders who typically attend these cabs to approve and review changes relevant to these types of cabs. Then you have the rolling meeting window. This is the amount of time that is allotted for each of these cab meetings when they're scheduled. In this case, we have a 90-minute cab session, but this can be configured on an individual basis. And I'll show you what that looks like once we get to that section. Then you can here define the conference details that will be used for the cabs. And below that is the agenda management. So a few different things here. Notification lead time. This is based on the number of cab items. So this will notify relevant attendees or stakeholders to attend or join the cab. In this case, 5 items before their item comes up. So this just is a feature that allows attendees of the cab to be respectful of attendees' time so that you notify them to join just relatively around when they need to join so they don't have to join for the entire 90-minute period. Time per agenda item. This is roughly how much time is going to be spent per agenda item, and there's a timer against agenda items that we'll see when we get into the cab workbench. This can also be adjusted. Then we have these 4 configuration items. You can automatically add change requests to the cab meetings themselves based on the criteria that we set up. You can auto add agenda decisions into the meeting notes. So as you make decisions on changes in your cab meetings, we'll have automatically add notes about those decisions into the meeting notes that are sent out post the meeting. This option, complete pre-approved changes. If you pre-approve any cab changes or changes that are on a cab agenda before the meeting, if you check this, it'll still be reviewed in the cab just for completeness, but most of the time people don't check that. And then at the very bottom of this is the actual condition editor. So these conditions are what are used to filter for and pull in change requests into these cab meetings. In this case, I'm looking at normal changes. So either the type is normal or model is normal, changes that are of high or moderate risk, and the state is unauthorized. So one that is ready for cab to be reviewed and approved. These can get much more complex and much more specific based on your requirements and the types of cabs that you have. This is a pretty simplistic criterion that I've set up here. The other thing that is defined as a part of these cab definitions is the schedule entry. So the schedule entry is actually defining the day and frequency in which these meetings will be scheduled. So in this case, I have a bi-weekly meeting. So it repeats weekly every 2 weeks on Tuesday, and it'll repeat until this date. So if I go back to the details here and I hit refresh cab meetings, you'll see that from today till that date, every 2 weeks, it creates a meeting on Tuesday for this CAB meeting that is 90 minutes in duration. So that's just a little bit on setting up and configuring the administrative aspect of the CAB meetings. From here, let's go actually look at an upcoming CAB meeting. Let's check this first one here. So again, this is now an individual CAB meeting based on that definition. And as you can see, the UI here looks very similar to what we just walked through, and that's on purpose because we want it to be familiar. But here, there are some additional things that you can do to modify the specifics of this particular CAB meeting, like if you need to adjust the start time or end time, you want to make it shorter or longer, just change the date based on any criteria. You can add additional delegates or board approval groups if there's any particular changes here that need those kinds of folks to join. The agenda management and criteria can also be adjusted for this meeting if you decide to do that. If we go to the related records for this meeting, you can actually see the agenda items that have been pulled in based on the criteria for this meeting. So we have 10 changes here, all high or moderate risk based on the criteria we set up. And then on the attendees portion, we can actually see who was pulled in here. So the CAB manager and delegate will also always be a part of these meetings, as well as the board members, or in this case, a board group, the approver group that was pulled in. You can see the reason why they're pulled in. And the dynamic portion of this is actually the attendees. So these are pulled in based on the change requests that are associated to this CAB meeting. It'll pull in any of the assigned to folks for those changes so that they also join this meeting for approval. Okay, so that's a bit on the configuration side. Let's actually open up the CAB workbench in SOW. All right, so this is what that new UI looks like. I'm going to walk us through it from right to left here. So at the very top, you can see we have the scheduled time. This is how much time is allotted for the meeting. Once we start the meeting, this will start going down actively. And then on the side panel here, we have a few different options. We have the meeting information. So this is what we defined in the configuration, and the conference information is right here. So you can share that pretty easily if you need to have anyone else join ad hoc. But you can see this is all the stuff that we defined. We also have this attendees option where you can look at who the attendees to this meeting are. You can actually search through this if you're looking to see if someone accepted the meeting. Oh, is it working? Looks like that component might not be working in this demo. But you can search through this and you can see who, search for whoever is attending the meeting. If they're online, we have presence here, as well as if they accepted it. And then also we have this meeting notes section where you can document notes for the CAB session. And then if you check that box where you have it automatically being updated based on decisions that you're making, this is where that information will be captured, and this is what's sent out after the CAB meeting is over to all stakeholders. In the center here, we have kind of where most of the work will be happening in the CAB meeting. Through a lot of our design partnerships and talking with customers, we actually kept this pretty light for now, but we do have some ideas on how we're going to continue to improve this. At the very top, we have just a few key fields that we're surfacing in this form: the record ID itself, the number of CIs, the risk, pending approvals, the assignment group assigned to, and planned start and end date, as well as the description. We do anticipate that for some changes, more information than this will be necessary. So the nice thing about SOW is you can actually just click into this record here, and as it opens, you can get all the details of this change in SOW. So this is where I mentioned that we see CAB and SOW as being a good entry point for certain customers who don't yet use SOW to start configuring SOW, because if you're using CAB and SOW, you'll often be coming to these changes and you will maybe want to modify the overview page and authorize state to have all the relevant information that reviewers would need to quickly come to a decision. If you don't have that set up, though, you can just come to the details tab here and you'll have all the information within the change to review, as well as you have a view of the schedule, any conflicts. Like if we looked at this one, you have the calendar view and you can see that this change is scheduled in a blackout window, so that's probably not good and wouldn't be approved. So you have all that detail from within SOW. All right, so back to the change. Just below those details are the work notes and comments. So this is an area where we think folks can collaborate either during the CAB meeting or even pre-CAB. You can come through as an attendee or approver and leave comments on particular changes in this comment section, and that can help accelerate CAB reviews. And at the very bottom, we have the activity stream that has all the changes to that CAB or that particular change documented. And on the very right, we have the agenda. As you can see, for now, we haven't started this meeting. It's pretty limited, so I'm going to go ahead and start this meeting. And you see we get a few more options here now. Again, this will look pretty familiar to those who use Legacy CAB Workbench, but there is one new option here. That's the defer option, but I'll walk through all of these. So on this particular change, you can see that there's that 10-minute timer that's clicking down. We can see the risk of the change. If we wanted to make an approval decision, we have that option right here. If we wanted to maybe move on to the next item because we're not ready to review this change yet, but we do want to review it later in the CAB, if we click next item, it'll just move to the next item and we can start discussing this, assuming that person's here. Let's say this person or the approver that's needed for this change isn't going to make it to this CAB session. We can actually now defer this change. And what deferring the change will do is it'll move it to this deferred tab, which on the back end, we have logic that'll pick up this change and automatically add it to the next upcoming CAB meeting if it's not discussed here. If, let's say, this person is able to join or surprisingly joins the meeting, we can always restore the change back onto the list and have it reviewed at some point in this CAB meeting. If you want to talk about a agenda item that's a little bit later on in the agenda, right now you can move up an agenda item here, like so, make it the next item, and talk about it right away. One of the improvements that Dan will talk about when we get to it is we're looking at making this agenda management a bit easier to use. We have heard that feedback from customers, but like we said, we were trying to get functional parity out in the May release, and we think we've delivered that here. But there's a lot of exciting enhancements that I'm sure Dan will walk us through in a second. So with that, I'm going to pause. Maybe there's any questions that we can answer before I hand it over to Tosh. Any questions that you saw, Dan?
I haven't stopped answering questions since you started talking, Kalen.
Okay,
I've been on I'm at 23. I've done 23, so I'm just about to hit 24.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll answer
so
that
we have one question which I might put Tash on the spot with because I think she knows the answer. Tash, do we still have, and if you don't know the answer, just say, but do we still have events to notify people when their change is coming up?
So nothing from that side in terms of backend has changed, but I don't think we have any UI specifically in SW CAB to do that. I'll need to double check the scenario and see what we have fired up because the backend events are all exactly the same. We're using exactly the same APIs. So all of that we kind of inherited for free for the SW CAB. But I need to double check, do we do anything on SW side specifically?
So what Tash is saying is there's nothing that comes up on the screen when you're looking at CAB, say it's your thing has come up, but we do have an event that fires in ServiceNow when your change is the agenda item. That's always been part of CAB and is still part of CAB. So there's something which is quite easy. It's kind of can be very low code. There's something that fires up in ServiceNow and will allow you to hook it into a process like a notify process or integrate with something else or send an email or whatever you need to do to notify someone their change is in discussion right now. Okay. Kalen, Karen. Oh, Tash, right?
Yeah. So the next demo is going to be Tosh demoing how to configure the form in. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just give a little intro here. So when we've been showing customers, we've had some early adopters, right? We've been talking to a lot of customers about CAB. I've been talking to customers non-stop about CAB for probably about 6 months and for a little bit of time before that. When we've shown people CAB, one of the first questions that come up every single time is, okay, cool. So how do I configure it, right? And so what we decided on this call is bring one of our engineers who is an expert in change and an expert in configuring UIB and an accessibility champion. So all the things we need to have to show you how to configure this. We have made this configurable, right? We built it to be configurable. We also built it, and as Tash will kind of explain, we also built it so it looks nice and it's accessible, right? So there is a level that, if you go and configure your own stuff, you've got to try and keep within the bounds of making it still look pretty, but making it also accessible to people who may have less reduced visibility. They may not be able to, they may need screen readers, all these kind of things. They may be looking at mobile devices, they may have enlarged text. So Tash will talk about some of those things. what we're showing you is pretty much bleeding edge, right? There are some components that we're going to show you that you have in your system, which are right at the edge of what we've got available in the platform to allow you to configure it. So we want to show you the new stuff because it's cool, because it's new, and it's because of what we're doing going forward. We don't want to show you all stuff, right? We want to show you new stuff. So there are some caveats around this. First of all, if you configure it, you own it from that point, right? So as with everything in ServiceNow, if you take a component and configure it, when you upgrade, that component is then not automatically upgraded. Your admins have a process around this for everything within ServiceNow, right? A script include, business rule, whatever it is, it will be flagged up to them when they do the upgrade that this thing has not been upgraded and how they would then successfully, some suggestions around how they would merge in code to do it. It's a technical thing beyond the scope of this call. But for the point of this call, what we need to know is that if you go in and you configure one of these items, you then own it. And in future releases, you'll have a responsibility to kind of merge in any changes that we make going forward. Okay, Tash.
Hi, everyone. So let me share my screen. And let's have a quick look at, not so quick look at customizations. So this is how the cab looks right now. And as Dan mentioned, we have built the cab in mind, the cab with the customizations in mind, but we also didn't want to develop a brand new set of tools for you to learn as you're trying to customize cab, because there is already quite a lot of things you can do in UI Builder. There's a lot of things you can do for customizing the workspace itself, etc., etc. So there is a whole bunch of things you can already do. So we tried as much as possible to leverage existing tools to give you ability to offer a more meaningful customizations and tailor parts of the cab to your needs. So we have a couple of customizations points, and I think I already mentioned one of them. Please hold. Sorry, I just need to very quickly impersonate because instance logged me out. So the first one I'm going to mention, which the people who worked with the record page are going to be already familiar with, is customization for the right-hand side toolbar. So for this wonderful area with the meeting information and attendees and our meeting notes. So that can be customized in much the same way as you can customize the record page and the sidebar on record page. If you go into the page collections and you go to cab, you will see that there is a cab meeting sidebar here. And underneath it, there is a whole bunch of items. So these are pre-existing tabs we have. If you would like to add a new tab, you can simply just add a new page here. You will also need to navigate to the root record and configure the little icon which shows up. But aside from that, you can add a brand new tab nicely and easily for the sidebar, and it will just pop up. This is also movable across different workspaces because the page collections, they are shared across all workspaces. So you can use it in multiple workspaces. They're available to you everywhere. And of course, you can also use it to adjust individual parts of the sidebar you already have. The other customization part we are offering is with the page itself. So we tried to think about cab potentially being integrated, not just inside of the SOW, but also other workspaces, because you might not be using SOW, or you might want to have different cabs for different purposes. So with this in mind, if I navigate to experiences and I go to Service Operations Workspace, if I can type, my apologies. Perfect. And if I navigate to the cab page, the prime things we identified, which you might want to do differently from workspace to workspace, is really where you navigate. So we have two types of navigation So one navigation is navigating to a record page, and it can be a cab meeting itself, or it can be a change request, etc., etc. My apologies, this is a test instance, so this is not fully working as expected. So we have an open record event, and this event receives a sysID and a table, and then you can basically direct where you want to go. By default, we direct to the record page of your workspace. If you would like it to go somewhere else, or set up the cases where you want it to go somewhere else, you can do it nicely and simply just from the page. The page, if you notice, contains almost nothing inside of it. So when you customize this, you own only the page, not the actual cab itself, and I will speak in a second why. And much the same, we have also an open list. You can also configure this and change where this is taking you. So this allows you to port the cab across multiple workspaces if you wish to do so. And now I will move on to the main event. And what we think is going to make cab hopefully a lot easier to operate for you than the previous pages which have been built in UI Builder for SOW. We have built cab with something called Component Builder. So Component Builder in UIB does pretty much what it says on the tin. It allows you to create your own components in UI Builder. So for example, if you look at this page, we have a component for the card. So card is an individual component. If you wish to modify the card, you modify that component, you own only card. You do not own anything else, you own card only. If much the same, we split the page into the small logical chunks, which then you can go and edit. So when you modify them, you own just a small chunk of the page rather than whole page. So but the caveat is the component builder at the moment is pretty much in early access. It will be going general access in Zurich patch 1 of UIB, but at the moment it is hidden behind the system property. The kind folks from UIB team have given me a script which you can run as a system administrator to activate it, but they ask that if you're using it, you are using it to begin with just on your development instances, and the actual full release is coming, and it's coming in Zurich patch 1 is the store patch 1, so you will need to uptake it as a UI builder from the store. So if I run the script with global, and we can share the script with you so you can start experimenting with it on your dev instances. So if I quickly run the script, my UI builder is going to change. And as you can see, I run it in global scope, and I am a system administrator. So if I navigate to UI builder now, I should see a brand new tab once I get reload. Oh, perfect. Sorry, I shouldn't have reloaded it, but let's give it a second. So once we reload, we will see a brand new tab which has appeared, which lists all of the components we have created via the UIB. So if I navigate to components, you can see that we have a cab meeting, of course, but we also have a whole bunch of components prefixed with cab meeting. So if you want to see all of the cab meeting components, you simply do cab meeting. And that will show you every single cab meeting component which is available. As you can see, there is a fair amount of them down to the individual cards in the sidebar. And this is, again, just to give you ability to customize. So you can actually change the look and feel, change to a certain extent the behaviors, just to adapt it for what you would like. So in my case, I would like to add assign to field on my cards, because me running a cab meeting, I would like to see who this particular change is assigned to. So how I would do that? So I know that I need to edit the card. So let's find agenda list card. So this is our agenda list card, and it kind of gives you in the description what it is for. So if I navigate to agenda list card, and again, bear in mind, I'm a system administrator, so this does not require main access, nothing like that. So I go to edit this in original scope, and what I'm going to do is, for all of you familiar with UI Builder, you will recognize this. This functions, component builder functions exactly the same way as UI Builder does. It just allows you to create reusable components via the means of UI Builder. So what I want to do is, just under our header and before the actions, I want my assign to field. So I'm going to do add after, and I'm going to do label value for this. Perfect. So I will use another component for this, but this is one of the standard components. I will give it my label assign to. And now, where do I get the data for it from? So what we do is, when we pass the data into the card, we actually pass the data for all of the agenda item and also for the change request. So what this allows me to do, and we also give you an example data here, so you can do your bindings a lot easier. I'm going to go to agenda item record data. I will go to my task. Inside of the task, so task represents the task which is linked into the agenda item. So in this case, it's a change request, as you can see from display value. I go to the record, and in here, I have everything. I'm in all of the fields from the change. So the one I would like is assigned to. Perfect. I'm going to take a display value from it, and I'm going to apply that one. And just to make it a bit nicer, I'll add a little margin on top, just to not stick it next to each other. Perfect. So I will save this. I will, just to make sure that we clear the cache, so from the top here you can clear the cache. I will reload our cab meeting, and let's have a look. Can we get assigned to appearing? So let's give it a second. And as you can see, every single item now has assigned to displayed. So this allows you to pull additional fields you might want and display them on the cards or in this information section or in your meeting information or on top, etc., etc. So all of the different parts of the cab are customizable independently from each other. One caveat I would like to mention: please avoid using, especially for the cards, large fields, because the cards are intended as a quick preview, and we don't want you to need to scroll for a very long time in order to add to the next, get to the next agenda item, or to review what's coming up next. So we recommend not to do it. There is no hard restriction because, of course, with UI Builder, once you have the data, you can build it. But we recommend that you don't put the large pieces of data, especially into the cards. They are far better served in the preview section you have here. So you can place them in here, and then when somebody creates, selects the agenda item, they will see it here. But this is just a quick demo for you to see how you can customize the UI and what you can do with it. And we try as much as possible to give you example data so you know how the data will look like when it comes in. So you can get the example data from here, and you can review the object and see what's available. So I will pause here before I will do another very quick demo, which hopefully fits nicely into what Dan is going to be talking about next, and any questions which popped up around customizations.
So we have one around UI Builder development course by ServiceNow. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not close to what courses you're on. I would say probably. Kaylin, do we know if there's one? Do you know? Maybe.
I'm in the same boat as you, Dan. I would assume we have one. So I'll look into it, and if we can find it, we'll try to share that.
Perfect. Any more questions?
Gosh, that was really good. Thanks for the demo. Thanks for taking us through that. So really important to note that you can configure stuff in CAP, right?
Yes.
And I think it's just I was busily typing answers to questions as we went through this, but just a couple of things to kind of, I think, maybe just discuss with you, Tash, quickly before we move on. So we've got different things in here. We've got like the bit at the top, which has all the fields in, right? Record, affected CIs, risk. If you look in there, you will see things like affected CIs and pending approvals give you a number, right? That is because they are a related list, right? They are just giving you a count for each list. It would look super funky and like clunky if we put the related list in, if we drop the related list on the screen. It just wouldn't work. It needs to be in a new tab. The related list is provided as part of the change. Tash, can you click on the CHG 00080?
On the actual thing, yeah, of course.
Yep. So if you click on this, you go to the related list. It's already there for you in related records. Actually, one of the things we looked at is having a link that takes you directly to the related list from the count on the cab thing in here. We couldn't quite get that working. There's some limitations within UI Builder that doesn't. But there is an additional click. There's one extra click. We're sorry about the one extra click, but there is one extra click to do to get to the related lists. In there, you can see outages are in there. That was one of the questions that were in there. There's a question about conflicts. Kaylin, did you answer that question about conflicts?
I did, yeah.
You did, right? So conflict isn't on there, right? We don't have the conflicts related list on there at the moment. It's a parity gap we're aware of. I'm talking to the designer about that now. We don't have conflicts in there. So let's if we go back to the cab item, I just want to do a couple more things. Yep. And then in here, we've thought really hard about how this works and what people want in there. You know, we can see within reason you want it to, maybe you don't use affected CIs, right? You don't want to see that field. That's cool for conflict, right? Maybe you want to put a couple of things, maybe you don't use risk, right? Maybe you have a field called our_risk, right? And you want that instead. You know, that's cool too. don't start overloading it. It will look super messy. The other thing is down below, you've got the section description, which has like large text fields. Keep your large text fields there. I can understand you may want to have description and justification, maybe super important to see justification during CAB. Again, remember, you can always click on the change and see the change record. People can always do that. But if you want to put some long text fields in there, go for it. The key thing is, for the direction we're taking CAB, with how AI will help with that in the future, is we want to have this discussion going on in the work notes below the changes. That's what some of our customers have told us they want for the future, so that people can record the things that they're talking about and asking in CAB, a bit like we're doing on the Q&A in this call, right? So it goes in the work notes. If people want to type stuff, people can see it. People are recording a discussion. Audit trail is really important for change. So, going forward, hopefully, we can have some integrations with Teams so that discussion gets generated on Teams. We're not quite sure the data model of how that works. It's when you start diving into it, it's a bit madly complex. But this is where we're going, right? So some data on the change. Basic data allows you to regress. Agenda items on the left-hand side that you can reorder and stuff like that. Meeting information on the right, collapsible, so you get a bit more screen real estate. Link to the change, click on the change, see more details on the change. That's the kind of working process that we'd like to see here. Okay, cool. That's me.
Yep.
Tash, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to add to this is change is complicated, and we know change is complex. This is why we try to build the change page in SOW to kind of give you more information up front in the overview tab. This, of course, given the limited real estate we have inside of the CAB, is not that easily portable across the two. And with workspaces, kind of instead of having multiple browser tabs, which you can get quite easily lost, especially if you have other work opened, you have a dedicated tabs here. So take advantage of this, because your navigation path should be quite straightforward between the CAB meeting itself and the change request. So this should allow you to jump between the two quite easily. And a lot of information about the change is quite often better viewed within the context of the whole change. And this view is what kind of gives it to you. And this is tailored for really getting you to understand what's going on with the change. So if you want to drill deeper, this view and the change page is probably where you want to be. Perfect.
Thanks, Tash.
All
Cool.
right.
So I think this was everything for questions. So I'm going to give you one small sneak peek. And one thing I'm going to mention, this is very much work in progress. So we just got the prototype working very, very recently. But we wanted to show you what is upcoming in version 8 of SOW in terms of CAB and what we are working
It's
on.
August release, right? That's
Yes, I believe
August
so,
release.
yes.
And
Yep.
the reason we wanted to show this is it looks kind of cool, and it also shows you why you don't want to do too much playing around and configuring, and why we do this in SOW, right? Why we've taken the investment of going to SOW, the kind of cool stuff you can do. It's one example. It's just one example of one cool thing. Tash, you go for it.
Yep. So I'm going to put my accessibility hat for a second on. And essentially, there is a guideline in WCAG 2.1, and WCAG is a standard we follow for web accessibility and try to, as much as possible, to follow. And there is a lovely guideline 1.4.10, which asks for reflow. And what reflow means is if you zoom the page up to 400%, it should still remain usable. So you should be able to use it. You should be able to access every part of the page. So the way this looked like in the first iteration of the CAB is you would get a fat scrollable bar at the bottom. And then what we've done is we worked with our team, our platform team, to try to deliver something better and something a bit more cool. So this is what I'm going to show you now. So if I switch to my instance here, and I start zooming on this instance. So to start with, it kind of behaves much the same. I'm still fine-tuning some breakpoints, so please bear with me. But once I hit the next zoom point, you can see that the layout of the page has transformed. And what we've done is we turned these items to be horizontally scrollable, and we positioned them side by side to take a better advantage of the space you have available on the screen. And when you scroll down, and again, please bear with me, this is a work in progress, we also started stacking our contextual sidebar to do this. And if I go even further and get smaller and smaller and smaller, all the way down to our 400, you can see that now they have stacked. So the current agenda item is stacked on top of the upcoming agenda items, but they're still scrollable horizontally to kind of get you ability to have a bit more real estate space and less scrolling to get to the actual agenda info. So this was the prime driver behind this was trying to fulfill the criterion from WCAG and doing a much better experience than we could in the first version. But there is something else quite cool which this gives us. So if I open my developer tools, and I'm really sorry about the amount of code, but there's one particular thing I want from this, and it's this part. So let's have a look how this would look like, say, on iPad Air. So if I go to 100%, as you can see, you can now leverage the same UI you leverage for Zoom. You can now leverage it on smaller screens. So if your screen hits a particular point, we will change the layout for you. So this is not just for accessibility. We can also leverage this for smaller screens. And with CAB especially, we know that the users can be joining from all sorts of places. Some might be on tablets, some might be on their phones. When I previously joined the camps myself, I was quite often on the phone. So we know the struggle. So with this in mind, this also allows us to basically hit two things: make it a lot more user-friendly on the smaller screens, and also get it a lot more accessible for the people who need it zoomed in to actually be able to see and operate. And of course, if I switch, for example, to iPhone 14 Max, you will see our other breakpoint coming in effect, and you can just scroll through the items, scroll through the page, you have your stacking, etc. I am working with our designer to get this to be more fully fledged, and he already produced some awesome designs for this. So now that we can build this sort of UIs in UI Builder, we will try to leverage it for CAB and deliver a better experience. So this is just a sneak peek of what's coming in version 8.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tash.
everyone.
That looks amazing. And like you say, it's two things. It's showing you that we're thinking about accessibility and how to use the mobile devices, but it's also showing you about why we sometimes limit the fields on the form, right? People come to us and say, why can't you see X, Y, Z, and 1, 2, 3? And it's because we're trying to make it so that this works across so many different platforms for so many different people, so many different devices, I should say, for so many different people. There is only one platform. So, yeah, we can move on to roadmap now. Kaylin, thanks so much for turning up, Tash. Thanks for doing it. Really cool demo. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tosh. All right, let's switch back to the slides. Okay, so we're going to move on after that great demo to our backlog. So Dan's going to walk us through this, and as he goes through this, I'm going to open up a poll maybe halfway through, and we're going to ask for some of your feedback on what we're talking about here.
Okay, so I'm going to talk through some of the enhancements, and we have designs for these, and maybe on another call we do in the future, Caitlin, we could think about having Dennis along to talk through some of the designs, right, before we even get to engineering. But the idea is, first of all, to be able to work with CAB at bulk. We've worked with a few really big customers and a few smaller customers who do a lot of changes through CAB. And what we're seeing is people sometimes use spreadsheets because Excel is just so good at sorting and grouping and adding data in and allowing people to collaborate. So what we want to be able to do is have multi-CAB experience in CAB. We want to be able to have a list view of changes that then allows you to tag changes either automatically, or change managers can do it. Not everyone, but you'd want to limit it to people. And so you can group things together. You can have like a tag for, like, I don't know, high risk EMEA infrastructure changes. And that would, you can group them and look at high risk EMEA infrastructure changes and then have them answered as one part of the CAB section. The other thing we're looking at in addition to that is having pre-CAB reviews. So what you can do is you can tag up the changes, show people the changes, people can go in and mark changes as needing discussion. So you have this big group of changes that are all tagged, like a patching thing with 400 changes, maybe, an extreme example. You have them in a section. They're split up into like the EMEA ones, the America ones, or the business impacting ones, or not. You have multi-tags on these changes, and what people can go in and they can group them on the list, look at them, run through, say these are the contentious changes. I have 5 that I need to discuss on that. And then when you come to CAB, those changes are flagged and you can work at bulk. And the idea is the workflow we've seen customers doing in Excel, other places, is right, 95% of these changes approved, fine, no objections, right? These 5% of changes, let's have a discussion. Makes CAB so much more efficient. Maybe out of those 5%, 1% need to be deferred for the next meeting, but you get to go ahead with changes. You get to go ahead with the ones that can work. You get to keep your velocity in the organization. You're not slowing things down. So that's something we're looking to do as well. CAB agendas, more use cases around CAB agendas. I'm talking fast because we're getting to the end of the call and I don't want you late for your next meeting, right? So extending CAB agendas. Different cabs in the organization have different purposes. You know, one end you've got your high risk cab, which is like traditional things. You're making changes to the mainframe, right? Great big, hairy, scary changes that happen once every 6 months. And they get discussed in detail in the cab. And there's like 2 of them that are doing loads of stuff. On the other end, you've got DevOps, right? DevOps hardly ever needs to go to cab normally in an organization. But it's still worth reviewing what those DevOps changes. We want it to be an advisory board, right? Not an approval board. The A doesn't stand for approval, it stands for advisory. So if you wanted to, and customers have told us they want to do this, they have a DevOps cab that looked at the last 2 weeks worth of changes and just saw where they were loaded on the schedule and maybe what went wrong because of the changes and talk to the team and work out what guardrails to impose. Maybe you want to do that. Maybe you want to look at bulk changes or patching changes slightly separately and have an agenda section for them. What we're going to do is we're going to have, in the future, your CAB definition can contain agenda sections, and each section can have a query that pulls changes in, so that you can run through a section, invite people to a section, and then run through those things in the section, and then move on to the next section. It's a different purpose. It's quite easy for us to implement, but it's quite a big functional change for you guys to work with. Multi-channel integration, we've covered that loads of the chat as we've been going through, right? We want people to be able to sit on Teams and talk about the changes before the CAB, during the CAB, maybe after the CAB, and for that information to be propagated into the CAB. It's kind of complex to work out how that would happen, because you might be talking about 5 changes on a Teams channel, 1 change on a Teams channel, the whole CAB on a Teams channel. How we, tag those changes in Teams, like with whatever we use, hashtags or whatever, to get the information from the Teams channel into the right change is complex. We need to make it workable for you, but we're working on that. All this stuff on the roadmap. Have I done? Oh, improved agenda management, right? So we have CAB sections and we have CAB agenda items. Imagine the future, right? You have 4 sections in your CAB. You're talking about the high risk changes. You're talking about some of the bulk changes. You're talking about the failed changes for the last 2 weeks. You have them all in your CAB. You need to be able to move things between or within a section. It kind of feels a bit like a Kanban board. So again, one of the concepts we're working on is the ability for the CAB manager to switch into a different view to be able to rearrange agenda items. Maybe a VP turns up and says, right, I'm here for 2 minutes. Give me the 5 changes I've got to authorize. So you can just quickly pull them up, query the changes that are in the CAB, pull them up to the top, put them in the agenda, work on them next. We want that to be able to happen too. What I was going to say is all these things depend on you adopting CAB, right? If we have low adoption SOW of CAB, then these things are going to take longer to do. We're going to prioritize other things. If you adopt SOW in CAB, it's now at feature parity with what it was in CAB Workbench in UI 16. As Tash has shown us, there's some reasons to do it in SOW. If you move to CAB in SOW, if we see adoption, we can drive investment in this area. And it may be that, you don't like CAB. Hopefully you do, but maybe we need to look at other things. But actually, the response I'm getting on this call is that people are excited about using CAB in SOW. People have even been asking, how do we do change in SOW, right? There's stuff on that. So we'll cover those two or three things at the end of the call.